Hey YouTube, welcome to my retro review for the Ben 10 Omnitrix FX from the OG Ben 10 series. Now this is one of the first Omnitrixes I reviewed back in the day from the classics, and spoiler alert for the final verdict, but this remains one of my favorite Omnitrixes. Actually, personally, it is my favorite Omnitrix of all of the, at least a dozen I've collected over the course of the series. It's crazy that this can be considered retro now since the original came out in 2005, which is almost 20 years ago as of this recording, which blows my mind. It's one of those things that makes me feel old. I'll feel old when people say, I grew up with Samurai, but for some reason, this is, next level, just because this came in at kind of the tail end of, I was kind of older, I wasn't so much in that kid phase of, Power Rangers when I was growing up, but I was older when this came out. I wasn't the super young target audience at the time, and yet it's been 20 years, so every time I see people saying, oh, I grew up with Ben 10, it was from 20 years ago, I'm like, oh, I'm like the Crypt Keeper! But anyway, crazy how long it's been. But this remains one of my favorites. It's very simple. It doesn't have as much functions as a lot of the other ones where you would have various different sounds and phrases, maybe a little gimmick to go on it. But it was one of the most accurate for me in feeling like the show. And also, I have owned this thing a long time, so just of note, there are some scuffs all over it and stuff like that. And also, the dial and the sounds are a little sensitive, so it may take me a minute sometimes to get some of the sounds to work right. We've all been there, man. Just because of it being old, that might not happen to you if you somehow get it new or get one on eBay or whatever, but just make note of that. But starting with the design, obviously it's not 100% accurate to the show. It's not a full-on gauntlet, but it does a good job of being like a miniature version of the gauntlet on top. You do have the really nice premium strap here that doesn't feel like it's going to break or wear or anything like that. And when you have it on, especially when you're younger and have a smaller wrist, although I have little chicken wrists right now, it does feel like a gauntlet-esque. And I think that the paint job is really good on it. It has that I guess for lack of better phrasing, cartoon paint job where it looks like it steps straight out of the cartoon. Obviously, you do have that little window there that breaks the immersion a little bit, but for a little kid, it doesn't matter. For me, it doesn't matter. So this thing has 3 different modes. Off, which is the most exciting mode right now. No, but then you have on and try me, and I'm going to get to the try me mode at the end because there is something I want to note about with that. But you go to the on mode here, and nothing happens apparently, but you just get that activation, and you can see here there's some silhouettes under there for the various aliens. It's on forearms right now. But there you have Gray Matter, Upgrade, see, that sensitiveness, Ghost Freak, Wild Mutt, I think that's Heat Blast, Stinkfly, Diamond Head, my personal favorite. I always loved his, crystal sounding effects in the original series, and I'm so glad they brought that back in Omniverse. Accelerate, Ripjaws, and then back to forearms. So you can see that you have that green light illuminating it, mimicking the experience of the silhouettes from the show, which I think is genius. I really love that. That was one of my favorite things about it. Between the sounds and the green light and the way the silhouettes looked, I thought it did such a good job of replicating that from the show. So then you select one, and you get those sounds, and you saw I had a little bit of trouble activating it. See, it's sensitive. There you go. So that's just because, again, mine's old. That'll probably happen with wear and tear, but maybe not always. Maybe it's just because mine's been kind of smacked around in storage. But you basically just get that transformation noise. You don't get any phrases. This was before he shouted out the names, like roll call style. So you don't have that. Now, but I do want to note, the try me mode, one thing I wanted to note was when you do this, you get that little fun activation noise, which I think is actually the way it's supposed to be, which I find funny. The try me mode has that activation doot noise like it does in the show, but it doesn't do that when it's in the actual official mode. Instead, it makes that noise in the transformation. I remember messing with that in the store when I saw it, and I just find that to be much more satisfying for it to make that little, let's do it again, noise when you're activating it for the alien selection rather than the transformation noise. But I'm glad that it includes both regardless. But yeah, this thing is extremely simple. Again, you don't have a little disc gimmick or little figures. You don't have phrases and stuff like that. But for me, it always felt like one of the most accurate ones, both in terms of the way it looked and the sounds. Especially, I personally love the original Omnitrix sounds. I loved the sound mixing in that first series altogether the best in terms of the Omnitrix sounds, stuff like the diamond sounds that Diamond Head made when he did his powers. Like I said, I'm glad they brought that back in Omniverse. I'm not sure why they got rid of it for the Alien Force Ultimate Alien era, but I did prefer that. So if you're for whatever reason, shopping for an Omnitrix you want the most playability out of and the most sounds, this isn't for that, but I think it's a very good, solid, accurate first Ben 10 toy. Honestly, my perfect Omnitrix would be this one in terms of the look and style and the Omnitrix sounds, but then having maybe some phrases or just yelling out the names. I know that wouldn't make sense for this era, but I wouldn't mind that if I were to make some sort of perfect Omnitrix. In fact, I think the thing that could make this perfect without alien sounds would if there was some sort of secret command, like you hold down one of the buttons and it does the transformation music. I'm sure some of you remember that. I don't want to try to hum it and embarrass myself, but they had really heroic sounding transformation music in the original series. But yeah, overall, still my favorite Omnitrix. I think this is kind of tough to get a hold of. I haven't looked at Ben 10 retro stuff, but I know the Ben 10 stuff can kind of get expensive. But I can personally recommend it for an OG Ben 10 fan if you can get your hands on it at a reasonable price. Anyways, guys, until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.